Hop into the mystery machine, everyone. We are off to London to saw some capers around the Olympics. My name is Felipe, and I have never successfully pole vaulted, but we are here on the Scooby Snacks and Chats podcast to break down Scooby-Doo spooky games as part of the Brazilian Dragon podcast series. And I am not alone. I had to join someone who has the record in most hours of pop culture consumed every year, including podcasting about it. Robbie Freeman, welcome back to the Brazilian Dragon.
Thank you for welcoming me back. To be perfectly honest, my name is Robbie Looker, actually, just to make sure it's clear to you that my name is Robbie Looker now.
Robbie Looker. How are you doing, Robbie Looker?
I'm doing great. I got engaged last week, so I'm all about that
Congrats.
life.
I needed the scoop. That's why I had you on the podcast this week.
Yeah. Well, you said we were just talking before. I watch so much pop culture, and I podcast on my podcast, Kickball Friends, about pop culture. You fell behind, but the whole intro this week was me talking about the engagement. So if you want the full grimy details, by grimy, that's the weird word to use.
I'm like, aren't engagements usually grimy? I don't think so.
No. Details are usually good and not grimy, especially about an engagement.
Yeah.
So if you want the details, go to my podcast. But otherwise, stay here, and we're going to talk some Scooby-Doo.
For sure. Yeah, no, speaking of Scooby-Doo, what is your backstory with the Scooby-Doo cinematic universe? Were you a Scooby-Doo kid growing up? Were you just like enjoyer of the James Gunn movies? Like, do you have a long history, short history? Tell us that story.
I would say that I have a short history. It's funny you asked me to join this, and you're like, "Which do you have a specific episode or whatever in mind?" And I'm like, "Absolutely not." I would say probably my introduction to Scooby-Doo was probably Wayne's World. So I don't know. You're so much younger than me. I know what
Wayne's World is.
But you know what I'm talking about in terms of Scooby-Doo?
I don't remember the reference.
Oh, so
I know some of the other Wayne's World references.
At the end of Wayne's World, they do a bunch of alternate endings, and they have the Scooby-Doo ending, and it's delightful. And that was like my first introduction to Scooby-Doo. I was probably the right age for the original like Matthew Lillard movies that came out, and I enjoyed those, but I can't say I really watched the cartoons ever. It was funny. I was talking with my fiance, and she's like, "Oh, I used to watch the cartoons all the time." And I was like, I guess I just didn't. I guess I was watching too much Garfield and Friends or something like that. So yeah, that's kind of my background. But it was really fun to watch an episode and kind of get into it.
Did your fiance watch with you? Or did you watch it by yourself?
No, she was packing last night as I watched my episode of Scooby-Doo alone.
Well, honestly, this is a good episode for you because you're a big sports guy. And I don't know what your love of the Olympics levels are, but I know you love sports. So I would assume at least you have some fondness for the Olympics.
Felipe, I think I can correct you a little. We weren't watching the Olympics. We were watching the World Games.
The World Games.
Exactly. These were the World Games hosted in London, approximately around 2012, where the Olympics were also hosted in London in 2012.
The Cartoon Network air date for this episode was my, how old was I turning? 15th birthday, because it was July 27th, 2012, which is when the London Games had their opening ceremonies. And I only remember that because it was my birthday.
I loved all of the mentions of the World Games because it's so funny to me. Like when you see commercials during the Super Bowl and like they're not an official sponsor, so they're talking about like the big game or like get your new TV before the big game, and they're legally not allowed to say Super Bowl. And as someone who works in marketing, I also have experienced that where like I've wanted to just say like the Olympics or X, Y, and Z, and they're like, no, you have to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that. So we're just gonna say the World Games. So yes. But I was excited to see it. I thought it was a very fun, like silly concept, and it gave me a lot of vibes of a lot of different things.
Now that I've learned more about like different things that brands can do or like productions can do to conceal their brands or like address something without talking about it. Like I love anytime like I see in a blatant example, like someone highlighted to me the other day, I don't know why I thought of it, but like the Pear phones, like I knew it was Apple, but like they were literally trying to do Apple without getting copyright. I was like, oh, that's why they had it. I just assumed it was like for the gag. And I was like, oh.
The Apple thing is wild where like Apple will not let, I'm sure you know this, but like Apple will not let their phone be used by a villain.
Yeah.
So like
I've heard that.
If you watch Knives Out, like everyone has iPhones except for Chris Evans because he's the like spoiler for 5-year-old movie. But like he has a Samsung phone because he's not allowed to have an Apple iPhone.
No, and I kind of love it, but also it's like that people need to start working around that if they want to be smart and like play with like astute pop culture enthusiasts like yourself.
Yeah. I look out for it now when there's
Yeah.
someone, and like usually they're smart enough just to use generics because I like you
Bring
said,
back the flip phones for movies and TV shows.
exactly. Yes. It's great. I love when there's such a convoluted reason to like make the year 2022 or 20, what year is it, 2023, like be like 1995, and they're like, oh, like I guess we're going for our cleanse this weekend where we're not using our cell phones before the horror movie, or like there's always some insane reason why the cell phone doesn't work or they're not bringing their cell phones, and it's like, so they have to do all these mental gymnastics. It's just very, speaking of sports, mental gymnastics to get this done.
It's such a fun like little like now that I know more about some of these little things, it's fun to try to spot them and like I remember just even brand things. I think you put out a tweet when Poker Face first started about like what was your favorite brand sponsorship, like Subway. What were the
There was a couple of beers
Bud
that they
Light?
did.
Yeah, that was
Bud Light.
definitely.
It was
But I remember that was something fun that I think I actually really enjoyed about Poker Face. Another show I'm kind of behind on, but I'm not as worried about
incredible
spoilers.
show. Like
I
I
watched the
said it
first
when I
five
started
episodes
watching.
and I loved it, but I
It's
just
going to
kind
be
of
in the top 10. It's going to be in my top 10 of the year. There is an episode, I think, with Joseph Gordon-Levitt that like might have been my favorite
okay. I
episode
haven't
of
gotten
that
that one. I
season.
did
Yeah,
the
it's late in the season, but it's like very satisfying, I promise.
okay.
And
No,
it doesn't
I
matter.
cannot wait to get back to it. Right now, I'm scheduled to appear on a Gossip Girl podcast. That I am super.
XOXO.
Yep, I'm super behind on Gossip Girl. I was like, okay, I'll wait until it's closer to my episode because I'm like on a season 4 episode, and so I let it sit there for a year, and now it's like approaching, and I'm only on season 3 finally, and it's like middle of season 4, but I'm watching it on 2x, so it's like
It's
I'll
okay.
catch up.
It's not like there's a lot of TV shows that are dropping recently.
Right,
It's not like everyone's trying to get in for the Emmy window. I think
it's
honestly,
the only thing
sorry,
I've
go ahead.
seen, The Mandalorian, and I feel like everything else is like I need to catch up on Mrs. Davis. I haven't seen a second of it. Ted Lasso, finish Shrinking, finish Poker Face,
Yeah.
Last of
And
Us
I will, you know what I'm gonna do? Instead of watching Shrinking, watch the Big Door Prize instead.
with
Um,
Crystal Dowd.
yes.
I love him.
Um,
He's one of those
I,
like weird, quirky celebrity crushes I have.
yeah, he's delightful. I will say it's like very similar to Shrinking in that it's kind of like a 40-something white man going through an existential crisis and like
It's on
with his
my list.
family.
It was just like lower on my list. Like
Yeah,
I,
I
I
liked
feel
it
a
better
little,
than Shrinking.
I feel some guilt over well, Shrinking I can talk about at work. That's the only reason that it's like
Oh, there you
priority.
go. Okay.
Yeah. But uh, I there's so many things on my list, and it's not that I'm not enjoying Gossip Girl. It's that like I just wish it was at another time that I could prioritize. I'm also like
Yeah. That
incredibly
happens when you're
behind.
like,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
when that happens to me when I'm binging a show and like I rewatched like The Magicians in January, and I was just like casually rewatching The Magicians, and I was like, it's a good thing there's nothing else on because like otherwise I would not be doing this. And like as soon as there was other TV, I was just like, okay, this isn't that good. I'm just gonna
Mhm.
go back to other stuff.
And like Caitlin wants me to watch Gilmore Girls, and I was watching Gilmore Girls at the end of the last year, and then I just like
Mm,
went on vacation and never went back to it. Not because I
yeah,
dislike the show; it's like actually quite enjoyable. It's like Gossip Girl, Gilmore Girls. Like there's a couple of these shows that's like I would never watch unless like I had a friend who pushed me to watch it,
yeah.
or like I was doing a podcast on it. But I feel like my life is better off having like experienced some of this because you like assume Gossip Girl is going to be trash, but it's actually quite enjoyable.
Yeah,
I
I
really
actually
enjoyed
never
it.
watched Gossip Girl. That's one of those ones where like I probably should add it to my list.
Season
But
one is
I
kind of a
love Gilmore
blur.
Girls.
But
What?
season 2 was actually like, oh, the writing of this is actually quite fire. Like the dialogue is still kind of whack, but the plot structure, I'm like invested.
Okay, I'm
Um,
into that. I will
yeah,
file it away for when the writer's strike goes real deep, and
yeah.
I need shows.
Unless you're gonna watch like every single 80,000 reality shows that they're gonna start popping up with now.
Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. We'll see how much time I have in my hands.
Yeah, maybe they should bring an Olympics to life, like early,
They're actually they're
or the
actually
World
doing a
Games.
show called The Buddy Games, based on this movie that was like the worst movie I saw, I think, in like 2020. And it's like a Josh Duhamel hosted reality game show where it's like you're on teams with like your camp friends or your drama friends, and it's like Olympic style. So
You
similar
were a
to
summer camp kid, right?
I was very much a summer camp kid. It
How
was
was
like
your Olympic records in summer camp Olympics or color ward or whatever your camp called it?
Honestly, I could not tell you anything except that when I was like the leader of the team, like I was in charge of the team, we lost. That's the only
Okay.
one I really know. Otherwise, like it stops being important to you when you're like 12,
Yep.
and you're just kind of like, oh, I get to spend more time with girls, like because like we're in song practice all the
Yeah.
time and it's fun.
So let me just confirm. Like when you say you were the leader, that was probably like your equivalent of summer camp, senior year of summer camp, right? Like your
Yeah,
last
so
year.
like your
Okay.
senior
And
year,
then
and then
did
you're
you go back
like
as a counselor ever, or
I
you're
did go back as a
okay?
counselor, but like my senior year effectively of being a camper, they chose like 4 guys and 4 girls to be in charge of like half the camp.
Each of you got like a
On
country
like
or
the color
something,
war
or like a
team.
team. Yeah.
And so I was like in charge of half the camp, and it was just like it was one of the coolest experiences of my life. It was just really cool.
That's awesome. As a counselor, like as a camper, I don't remember like Color War Day, Flag Day, whatever it was called at day camps. They didn't really do it at the sleepaway camp I went to. But the one time I worked at a sleepaway camp, and this camp was a miserable experience to work at, but we don't have to get into that. However, I do own the fact that I was one of the counselors of the winning team, which happens to be the UK. So great transition for me.
There,
I'm gonna
there
give
you go.
myself a self
Perfect.
five.
Feeling high five.
But Scooby and Shaggy are running away from a monster that the gang is trying to catch. They're on this like a track, and Diane sees Shaggy's run, invites him to the World Invitational Games. They like also unmask the villain, who was like some random white man who was probably doing it for capitalistic reasons. I don't really remember what his crime was, what his purpose was.
I do have a question. Is that how every episode starts, with like the ending of the previous episode?
Well, usually it's not even related to the previous episode. It's just like
Oh,
their
it's
own
just like
like
every episode
experience.
starts with like kind of a cold open
Yeah.
of them finishing a
So
case.
I've done a lot of these movies will either start out, there's like three ways. There's like kind of they're on an adventure and they're like already on their way to the destination. There's like a janitor of this museum is quietly bopping along to his headphones, sweeping the museum, and then gets attacked by a monster, and then they get invited to go solve a crime.
Like a
So
cold
like
open kind of
yeah,
thing.
cold open.
Like an episode
Or
of
there's the
Psych.
one where they start with like, they're in some like one of the recent ones I watched. It was like Shaggy has like he can't stop screaming, and they're at the doctor's office, and then we get a flashback immediately to the night before, where
Got
then he has like this mental like block for why he can't stop being scared.
Gotcha.
So those are like the big three ways that kind of open up Scooby Doo. Like even in the live
So
action, they did it with like, oh, here's it's kind of like, oh, this is the flashback, and like kind of how we
it
got it.
makes complete sense the way they open it up. Like I totally get that. Something that was interesting while I was watching this, and I don't know what this really speaks to, but as I was watching it, I was spending the entire episode trying to figure out whether this was something that was like made in like 2012 when apparently it was made, or whether it was a show from like the 70s or the 80s. And what was kind of cool is like outside of like a couple of like drug jokes that like I think they still would have made in the 80s or the 70s, like the Jamaican joke.
Yeah.
I could not figure it out until I was watching the credits, just like waiting to see whether Matthew Lillard was in it, because he was like basically the only name I thought I would know. And sure enough, he was in. I was like, oh, okay, it's modern. But I think that was a real testament to how good it was.
I'm assuming this was like this was a TV special, so that's why it's even in the list of like the movies that I have to cover. But a lot of these have started with like, yeah. A lot of these have started with like a little animated sequence with the main cast being credited in the title cards. But this one just had the like credits at the end. So it was interesting that you couldn't even see that it was Matthew Lillard until then. Other than the animation, which like you haven't checked out a Scooby-Doo franchise in a hot minute, so you probably couldn't even tell if this was like late 90s or early 2012,
yeah,
whenever
correct.
it was. Like otherwise, I think the animation is the only big difference, other than problematic jokes that you don't really see as much as the movies go on.
Yeah, like I would guess like I said, the jokes in this were like a little racy for adults, but like nothing that you couldn't show like a 13-year-old. Like
no, for sure. But like I'm talking about
like
the cancelable jokes. Like there was a whole movie where
there was nothing
like
there
Arabian
didn't
Nights.
feel like there was anything like there
Yeah.
didn't feel any like there was anything like that in there that I saw.
Now
That should have been a dead giveaway, to be honest.
Yeah. As a proud stoner, do you identify with the Scooby-Doo gang?
Sure. Yeah, like I think like
Yeah.
sure. Like I would definitely watch this while I was very high. Like I definitely helped my enjoyment of it.
And you're on the team that they're always high, right? You're on that like
I'm on like oh actually it's funny. I've always just assumed that Shaggy and Scooby were always high. I never really thought about the idea that the rest of them were high, to be perfectly honest.
Okay. No,
Is
because
that like is it
that's
it's
like
like understood that they're like all high all the time?
there's a couple of theories out there. So there's like the theory that like they're all high all the time. There's the theory that it's like Shaggy and Scooby are like high and they're extra paranoid because they're like on drugs at that moment.
Yeah.
And then there's also like the one that they're all just innocent high schooler kids. And I'm like, no, they're at least like in their early 20s
No,
after
they're
college.
in their yeah. At this point, they're young adults. They're in their 20s, and there's explicit references in some of these. Like again, I'm not like super familiar with the franchise, but like there has definitely been bits where like the car, like where like the what's it called, the something machine
Mystery Machine.
mobile. Mystery Machine. I knew
Mystery
it
Machine.
had like a
Yeah.
name like that. The Mystery Machine, and like you see smoke coming out of it, like when they leave it. I think in the movie you see that.
Yeah.
I know from like listening to Matthew Lillard on like I think it was The Watch. He talked about like the R-rated cut of the Scooby-Doo movie that like was originally designed and intended. And same thing with the Scooby-Doo 2 that like they
Yeah.
just like eventually were like, now we're gonna make more money if it's rated PG. But like I'd love to see that movie. Like I would watch that movie. I think it'd be
I would
great.
too. I would love to see it as well. Like I want to know if there's like a cut of it out there,
Yeah, that's
or
actually
if it was
yeah.
just the script.
Yeah, release the R-rated Scooby-Doo cut. That's what I want to see. Get that trending
And don't make it
on
Velma.
Twitter.
Velma was not that good. So we get them all going to London. Scooby can't join because he's a dog, so he's gonna coach Shaggy. We also get to meet Steve Looker, who's a pole vaulter who makes Fred insecure. And
No, but
Fred
you
even
missed
lies
the
saying that he's a pole
important
vaulter.
part. Steve Looker is good looking and a ladies' man, so hence the last name Looker.
Daphne and
I
Velma were
saw that
all
and I
up
was
on
like,
him.
there was a lot of times where I was watching this and I had to remember like this is actually meant for like 10-year-olds, and like the way that I'm watching it, like not even with a child, is like the not what they're expecting to happen. So like I think you sent me one of the questions that you do, but like I figured out the twist immediately. Like I knew who the bad guy was immediately, but like I'm also an adult who's astutely watching pop culture, like you said. So like
Yeah.
not a problem. I was trying to like keep those two things separate in my head of like, oh, this is so predictable, this is so stupid, and being like, no, you're an idiot. This is meant for children. Like just watch it and enjoy it. Like you stoned
No,
asshole.
but
Sorry,
but
Chris.
even like as just rewatching, I was like, oh no, I figured this one out like within the first introduction of the character. But then I'm like remembering, did they try to make it like more compact since it's a TV show episode? Usually, like the movies, they try to drag it on a little bit. But like, no, I figured this one out so quickly, and I was like so proud of myself. But then I was like, wait, this is for kids. Stop, like
Exactly. I was like,
your...
oh man, it's definitely the announcer. He doesn't want his record broken. And I was like, yeah, like it's just a lot. It was just very funny in that way.
And it's like me being the asshole is like I even found out the motive, but it's like no, of course that's like I figured it out because of the motive. I didn't even figure out like it was him like technology wise, but I did think this was like a strong written episode, even for a kids show. Like they tied it back, like it was like paint by numbers a little bit mystery wise, but like they even had, I thought the little Godzilla snippet. So because they get attacked by the monster, and it's like the statue Fortius. Who comes to life, and then while it's attacking like Olympic Village, basically, Scooby and Shaggy are watching Gladiator-saurus marathons, and it's like the same mechanism. We find out that the bad guy was able to like create that same machine using the prop from the movie he was in. So I'm like, oh, that's actually kind of well wrapped up.
It's clever. There's a strong, I would say, A and B plot. I will say, like the C plot, is like very thin and like really kind of gets the short shrift because it's a 25-minute episode. And it's like, because honestly, if it were any stronger, then even children would know who the bad guy was. But like, I thought the A story, obviously with Shaggy, was quite enjoyable. Obviously I actually even enjoyed the B plot with like the Steve Looker and then what's his name? Fred doing the like the pole vaulting and all that stuff. So that really worked for me, and I just enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a good time. It was like definitely not like, I mean, I just came off of watching Music of the Vampire, and I definitely enjoyed this a lot more than that. So it's like all relative. Also, like, I mean, it's not gonna be a negative if it's a 22-minute episode as opposed to like an hour and a half movie, because they really cut all the fat.
Yeah, it's especially like, again, especially as watching it as an adult, because you're like, you don't have to misdirect me. Like I'm an adult, I can handle just like figuring it out. And it's compact, it gets the job done, and it's entertaining. And like, yeah, I enjoyed myself watching this.
Yeah. So we get to the next.
Would I watch
morning
another
and-
one? Probably not, but whatever.
Yeah, no. You already did your Scooby-Doo appearance. We can find
Yeah.
something else to talk about. We have to get another. What's the other decom that you really wanted to do that like I haven't covered yet? We did Brink last year, of course. Go
Johnny
check it out.
Tsunami.
Johnny Tsunami. That's the one that you want to talk about.
There you go.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd also watch the Even Stevens movie, The Famous Jet Jackson. You know, all the classics.
All the classics. But if you
I will
haven't
say,
checked it out,
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to plug your podcast, the Brink
Oh,
appearance, and I'll put it in the show notes. But yeah, definitely check out Robbie on his latest Brazilian Dragon podcast appearance. And then what were you going to say?
I was going to say, I was actually we were prepping for this podcast, and I was thinking about that podcast, how like I remember you like weren't as familiar with Brink because it was probably like a elder millennial decom movie as opposed to like a later one. And then like I've read like top 50 lists, and like Brink always comes in at one or two. So I'm like very proud that I'm there. Oh, actually, I will say my number one that we should do is Xenon, Girl of the 21st Century. If you're into watching that,
that's a good one. I haven't done yet. Like it's been like in pre-production. It's in development hell for a while.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes,
well, we can stop talking about possible movies and we can get back to talking about Scooby-Doo. It's
not the
Kim
so Possible movie. We already did that one. So Fred and Daphne and Velma go off to investigate. Meanwhile, Scooby and Shaggy are prepping. Scooby is the kind of coach that I would want. Like he's just like eat. And I'm like, yes, I'm a fat ass, please. Like I was very much. That's the only thing that bothered me about this is Shaggy like eats like I do and doesn't ever gain weight. Like that metabolism.
Yeah, there's same. I have that problem where like I have skinny friends and I'm just like, fuck you for being able to do this. Can I curse? Yeah. I can stop cursing if that's not
I don't
cool.
care.
Okay. I actually like to give a real thing. First off, I'm looking at Wikipedia. Do you know Scooby's real name is Scoobert? I did not know that.
I think I did know that. Yeah. Do you know Shaggy's real name?
Well, no, I don't.
It's Norville.
Norville. Okay. Wow. Okay. But I think what is kind of amazing with Scooby-Doo is that, especially like in this episode, is that he actually like accurately diagnoses Shaggy's skill for running. He's like, oh, you only run fast when you're afraid. And then like finds a way to motivate him. I'm like, for a dog, he's a pretty good coach. Like even with the eating, he's like a pretty good coach.
Yeah, because Shaggy it doesn't matter if he eats a lot. Like he still will run if he's scared. And like, I don't know, exactly. Scooby, smart coaching. Like someone should hire him.
Yeah. Well, I think I think you would be fine with the rest of the mystery gang, the mystery team, but I don't know if he would be able to coach people that he doesn't really know that well.
That's valid. So Fred, Daphne, Velma look around the village. Diane tells them that there were rumors of the statue being haunted, and that's one of the reasons she invited them to all join Shaggy with them. The ice cream stand isn't destroyed, though, and then it made me want ice cream. I now want ice cream.
Let's go get ice cream.
Sure. Oh, my God. So the other day, I was very high, and my friend Karina picked me up. We went to get some food, and then right next door was a Ben & Jerry's. I ended up getting 2 Ben & Jerry's because the first one was so good, and I was like, more for me. So anyways, they before the finals are starting, Velma is asking Steve about Igor Drozdov, who's another pole vaulter. And we also see that in this moment, Fred tries to pole vault using Steve's lucky pole vault. And then it snaps in half. And I'm like, Fred, how are you not in the hospital? You fell. And I was like, oh, he's going to land on the mat. He'll be fine. And I was like, oh, no, he fell.
Yeah, there are whole sequences with the pole vault where you're like, okay, someone would get very, very injured if they did what they're talking about. But again, cartoon, so it's okay.
Cartoon. I love animation. You can do some fun things like save their insurance. That's something that still bothers me. I was hoping that this would give me some sense of what their insurance is like both for their individual health plans as well as like property destruction whenever they do their mystery things. I don't know, but at the end of the day,
I would say that Velma is probably smart enough to have a pretty good insurance policy for the group. I think that Shaggy does not have his own. Shaggy has no medical insurance. This is pre-Obamacare days. There's no way that he has insurance. There's just zero chance.
Mm-hmm. No, Shaggy, he probably, if he were to have it, Velma would organize everything, or he.
Yeah, like she's paying for it behind his back, and he gets sick, and he's like, "Oh, what am I gonna do?" And she's like, "Don't worry, you have insurance. I've been paying for it, or taking money out of your paycheck to pay for it." Do they
Velma's
get
the
paid?
responsible.
Like,
one.
do
I
we,
also
do
could
we ever
see
see them
Daphne.
get paid?
No, but I feel like they're loaded. Like they don't go everywhere they go. Like also Daphne and Fred definitely have rich parents.
Okay, yeah,
Like, look at how Daphne
if you're wearing an
dresses. Look at how
ascot,
Fred dresses.
Yeah, you're right, 100% right.
They fly around the world. Like they go on all these adventures. They have to like be bankrolling in some capacity. Maybe they have a weed business, and that's like gentrified weed before it was cool.
They're the biggest distributors on the West Coast, and like they're just like.
So we get to the there's like standard Scooby-Doo shenanigans, and then Velma's like, "Oh, the pole was cut and glued." The Shaggy and there's not Shaggy, Sergey. They're suspicious of Sergey, Igor, and Diane because they weren't there when the last 40th attack happened. And the gang ends up searching for clues at night in the sewers. They find tire tracks. Shaggy starts bolting because he sees a statue of 40th, but we later find out the real statue, not the robotic, the special effects department statue.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that this was the part of the show where I got a little like, okay, let's get to it. Like,
wrap it up. Yeah.
This is the part where like I fully figured it out. I'm like, let's get to the third act like fun of this.
Yeah, I feel like if you figure out the Scooby-Doo villain so early on, it's kind of just like, okay, let's get to the reveal at this point. But like there are movies where like I'm like, I need a little bit more time. Don't tell me who he's at. Like even as an adult, there are definitely some experiences like I'm like, oh no, I think I have it. I'm almost there. But then once you figure it out, that's like when like, okay, let's get to the final sequence.
Yeah, like I got this. Like I don't need all these Mr. X. I know who we're going. Like you don't need to. You don't need to interview like the vaguely Eastern European people. Like I know that they're not the bad guys.
Mm-hmm. They went to the sewers in this scene. Are you excited for a future sewer property coming to this the big screens later this year? The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie.
I did not know that there was a TMNT movie coming out. No,
definitely watch the trailer. It's like it's animated in an interesting way. It's giving like Into the Spider-Verse. Seth Rogen's producing it.
Okay, so it's you're selling me here.
Check out the trailer.
I was a huge Ninja Turtles fan as a kid.
Yeah, that's why I asked. I was like, I feel like you
wrote hard for Michelangelo, obviously. But yes, so okay, I will check out the trailer and let you know.
Yeah, and I'll text it. I'll like text you in a couple days. Be like, what do you think? I don't hear from you.
Yeah. Perfect.
So we get the next day, Shaggy's getting to worry because he's like, I'm not fast because I'm not scared. And then Scooby's like, I'm gonna dress up. And then he starts chasing them. And the police officers like knock Scooby down. And then he's like, wait, but that's not me. And then it starts running. And then these dumbasses, the London police, try tasering a metallic statue. I'm like, ACAB, where are the brains?
That's ACAD. All cops are dumb, to be perfectly fair.
True.
That's a different problem.
The gang ends up trapping them because Shaggy, instead of running to the finish line, he goes and like vaults around and like catches the bad guy. And then they see also like, if it wasn't clear before, the statue does a giant pole vault into the stadium seating. So we find out it's Jack Riggins. He dressed up as 40th to make Steve quit the games because he didn't want his record broken. And Shaggy was like, okay. Steve was like, oh, you're very brave and kind for like ruining your chances at a gold medal to come save me. And Shaggy's like, oh, no worries, but you better promise me to break that loser's record or whatever he called him. And then he does. And that's kind of the end of the episode. He gets gold and we get the Scooby-Doo and credits. Anything from this final act that you very much had commentary on?
How long does this guy go to jail for? He attempted murdered a bunch of people. What kind of punishment is this guy looking at?
I'm always interested in this, right? Because it's actually something we don't discuss as often as we probably should, but the crime. So he like destroyed Olympic City, which is probably like $1 billion corporation. With between all the like media sponsorships and the advertising money that goes into
sheer destruction. He like crushed things.
I think that's at least 5 years, let alone attempted murder.
Oh, I think it's probably more. He probably has caused like tens of millions of dollars of damages.
He's definitely getting stripped of his medal.
Yeah, I don't. What the funny thing is, I don't know. I don't know if the World Games would strip him of the medal. I don't think that's he didn't take steroids, so that's not a problem. But yeah, I always watch it. Like it's so funny. I wonder also, is there like an arcane asylum for Scooby-Doo villains where they're all like just sitting there complaining? They're all just like old men who run amusement parks, and they're like like they're just
There
like,
definitely
oh, if it
has to
wasn't
be.
for
I mean,
those kids.
the plot of the second one is that Tim Blake Nelson, right? He leaves jail and then he's after them with all these like old monsters that they fought. So
Oh,
like there
okay.
is definitely someone should like capitalize on this. Like there's so much IP that like they want to capitalize. They're gonna redo all the Harry Potter books, but there's like so much Scooby Doo stuff that you can explore and make it like edgier in a better way than Velma. Like you could do like the Scooby Doo villains series, like where they like try to
Yeah.
get them. Like you could do like the adult like Friends, if you want to recreate Friends but make it Scooby-Doo themes, like there's a show
These
in
are
there.
all the
Like
kind
there's
of things that like we all want and will never happen. This is like when
yeah,
people are like, why don't they do like a Marauders? Like it should be like James Potter and his friends in Harry Potter and when they're in school, or like they just always choose the worst idea. Like even I was like looking at the Hunger Games trailer for the new Hunger Games movie. I'm like, there is so much material here. Like I could have just watched like a different character go through the Hunger Games, and it would have
yeah,
been like equally as interesting. And no, we get like an origin story for the big bad, and I'm just like, oh, this is so stupid.
yeah. I would literally watch a Hunger Games movie like with characters I don't know every year. Like if they just have to
Yeah,
play the Hunger Games, it's just like a rinse and repeat formula that works.
yeah.
Like and
I
maybe it
mean,
will get
I'm
stale
obsessed with
eventually.
those kind of. I'm obsessed with those kind of movies, like Belko
It's like it's a
Experiment.
reality show. That's why.
Yeah, it's a reality show. It's like I am obsessed with any of these like Hunger Games esque movies where it's like
Were
everyone
you
needs to
ever a fan
die
of
and all
those
the.
like it's like a superhero slash like cartoon trope where it's like, oh, they're all like something is weird happening and then one by one they go missing. Were you a fan of those
Yeah,
specific episodes? Because I was like,
yeah.
I think that was like my first taste of like, oh, I like this kind of like format where like the dynamic changes based on someone being removed. Eh,
Yeah, exactly. Like it's, I mean, like you said, it's a reality TV show layout, and that's why we probably like enjoy it and kind of flock to it because it's what we're into.
Once we go offline, let me give you a pitch of something that I'm workshopping in terms of a story that I would love your take on, but
Sure,
it's
love
still a
love to give
workshop
you my
idea. But
perspective.
so yeah, that's the episode. Anything else to add about this? I mean, Fred comes clean to Steve, and then he's like, "Oh, I knew that from like Jump. Like, you're not that slick, dude." um,
Yeah, Steve
oh,
Looker, like honestly, a really nice guy. I think like he immediately gets a bad rap because you're like, oh, this is the good looking athlete. You know what? He likes to read. He's trying to read every book. It's taking because there's a lot of downtime in pole vaulting. He's very nice to Fred when he doesn't need to be. He can be a real jerk to him. Steve Looker, really just nice guy. Like I expected way less from him.
yeah, no, it's definitely one of the more likable like himbos that Daphne is into. Because some of them are like weird, like the vampire one. It was this like emo goth vampire guy actor, and I was like, ew, it's kind of gross.
Was
Um,
Daphne the one going after him? Or was it Velma? I thought Velma was
I
like,
think
oh,
they were
you read
both
books?
were, but like
I read
usually
books.
it's like Daphne who go. Except a couple movies ago,
Yeah.
Velma literally fell in love with Carson from Survivor.
Okay.
So like basically the boy version of her. um,
Gotcha. That's a
yeah,
that's a huge trope also. Like, but don't need to get me started
yeah.
on that one.
All right, so let me get. Oh, I need to pull up my other. No, not that. I need to pull up our spreadsheet so we can do some of these shenanigans. So you also knew that it was Jack. What's his last name? Jack
No
Riggins.
idea, but I absolutely knew who that guy was. I knew the first time I saw him, the first time he's like, wow, you gonna break my record? I'm like, he's gonna be the bad guy.
Yeah, so Robbie gets a point for the co-host spot, so it's currently 28 to 27.5. As you can tell, it's not that difficult of a game. Generally, I feel
Seems
like I get
about
it
pretty
like
straightforward.
70% of the time. Yeah. Um, so let's go to our MVPs and LVPs. Now, Robbie, as our guest, I'm going to give you the floor. Would you like to go first or second with the MVP or the LVP? And then I'll go
I'm
first
gonna
with the other one.
go. I'll go first with the LVP.
All right. So let me start
Is
off
that
with the
confusing? Is that okay?
MVP. Yeah, that's totally cool.
Okay, you can
MVP,
start with the MVP. You start with the MVP then.
cool. So I like just to tell you who I'm considering. I think I think it's as I'm trying to even make a case for any of the other four. It's Scooby. Scooby gets the job done. He is a smart coach. Like at the end of the day, he got what was needed to be done. Like yes, Fred, Daphne, Velma, Shaggy all had their parts in capturing the bad guy. Now I'm talking myself out of it. I don't know. Who are you giving your MVP to?
You know what? I think my initial thought was Shaggy. And I think I'm
Shaggy.
gonna stick with Shaggy. I think that his skill running is what gets them kind of the faux invite to the World Games, of course. He also gives up a gold medal at the World Games to save a life at the end of the episode. And also he's just very fast. He's an Olympic or world game quality runner. So I'm gonna give it to Shaggy. I think my number, and like I said, the most memorable joke was when, and it was kind of like not a
The
good
Jamaica
joke, but it
one?
was like I found it was the Jamaica joke. I was just like, this is
Yeah.
so stupid, but also I love it. I thought he was
Yeah,
gonna make
so
a
they were
bobsled joke. That's what I thought he was gonna do.
I thought so too. I was waiting for it. But like I joined their bobsled team, but basically, so
Yeah.
just to hit the joke, they are doing the opening ceremonies of the World Games, and Shaggy hangs out with the Jamaican team, and then he's like, "Hey, man," or whatever
Yeah.
he
Basically,
says.
he's like, oh, it's me and the Jamaicans, the Jamaica. I'm like, okay, cool.
Do you have a strong stance on your LVP so far?
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind. This person was wallpaper during the episode. Also, shout out to Fred for honestly having a good run and borderline MVP candidate, but not really. Daphne is the obvious LVP. She doesn't even effectively do anything because, like you said, normally she's the one with like who falls in love with the guy with the name like good looking. But Velma is a more interesting love interest for that guy and also falls in love and with that guy or is like attracted to him. And then at least Velma like solves the case. Like I feel like Daphne basically doesn't do anything. Like I think it's like the
Yeah,
writers are the
she gets
reason
some of the
Daphne
credit
is
though,
in that
because
spot.
like she was like, "Oh, we found the hydraulic fluid," and I was like, "No, you didn't. That was Velma."
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot of like group project vibes from Daphne. This one where she's like she's
Yeah.
getting the A minus, but like really should get bumped down to the B plus because she didn't really participate.
I Daphne's my girl. Like she was one of my first celebrity crushes. Um,
Is she a
her and Scooby
celebrity
were always my
crush?
favorite.
Is she a
What? I
celebrity
don't know.
crush or a
I
fictional
car-
crush?
fictional character cartoon crushes, but like I mean, besides like Stephanie Tanner and Victoria Justice, I didn't really have any celebrity crushes until I was like in middle school.
Okay.
It was like mostly cartoon characters, right? Because like I watched more cartoons growing up. I'm trying to
I
think,
get
was there
that.
anyone else? This is a
Kim Possible,
conversation for
maybe?
like we should do a podcast top like
Kim
celebrity crush
Possible?
bracket. Kim Possible, ooh yeah. Danny Phantom, obviously, he was hot. But I can't really argue Daphne. Like Fred did stuff. Like Fred is easy to knock on, but if he's like actively having a good moment in the movie or show that I'm talking about, I don't think it's fair to give Fred like um an LVP here when he doesn't really deserve it. So I'll also double down on Daphne here. And Daphne is usually in the clear in terms of like, oh, she doesn't really get a ton of LVPs, and if she does, it's usually she's either super unlikable or super like bland and like irrelevant. So
So
like she
is the
has, I
way
think,
this works
7
that
total.
you pick the MVP and I pick the LVP, basically how that works? Or do
Uh,
like each of our votes count?
each of our votes count. Yeah. So you're going to be in the guest
Okay.
column. So here
Gotcha,
your
gotcha.
points gave to like Shaggy. It used to be like
Oh, okay. I
the
just wanted to
co-host
make
would
sure
also
my
have.
Shaggy point was counted. That's my only worry.
No, your Shaggy point got him.
Very excited.
He got him tied with the number of LVPs he has from the guests.
Wow.
Also, as our guest, though, I'm not allowed to give any bonus points. But if you have a bonus point that you want to give to either in the MVP, LVP category, or both, feel free.
I really would like to give my bonus point to Fred. I didn't
Oh, I
think
meant like in terms of like the background characters.
oh, background characters? Oh yeah. Good looking guy.
Good looking Steve.
Steve
Oh,
looking. I think that he comes across as like he's set up as a dumb jock who is gonna embarrass Fred, and when in reality he is a learned man who is really just kind of supporting Fred and wants him to kind of like try something new, and like he's very supportive, like he's not evil. I think that he was a delightful like secondary character and deserves a shine in this episode.
mhm. Yeah. Well, any bonus LVPs, or there's not really anyone else that you can think of?
No, I
Pretty
think
weak
everyone else.
background cast.
Yeah, pretty weak background cast. I mean, I enjoy a good fake, like I said, Eastern European accent is always enjoyable. But yeah, nothing else kind of really jumps out to me in this one.
All right, so let's get to our last part, the Scooby-Doo Spooky Games score. So any increments 0.25 going up, 0 to 5 is the scale, except I made a rule a couple of years ago that you're not allowed to go a full 0. You can only go 0.25 just for the data purposes.
Honestly, like, can I give an NA? Like, I don't think I have, like, is this, like, that's kind of a lazy take, but I just, like, don't, like, I don't know what the number would be. Is it just 2.5? Because I'm like, it was.
I mean, how would you rate it on Letterboxd? Like, as an
Are you
experience,
talking
as a
about the
movie-going
episode,
experience.
or are you talking about the episode, or are you talking about the like, I thought you said the, like, the audio, like the, like, music? Am I making this up?
Oh, no, sorry, the episode. My bad.
Oh, the episode. Okay, I would give it. Let's give it a 2.5. 2.25. Let's 2.25.
That's a solid
The
number,
reason
especially. Go ahead.
Yeah, the reason being, like, I definitely, like I said, the second act didn't really work for me because I already figured it out, and I think it took me a little time to, like, wrap my head around, like, okay, you're an adult kind of thing. It was pleasant. I didn't dislike it, but I have to take it down to a little bit below middle because I don't have the intention of ever watching another episode or another movie. So, like, if I gave it anything higher, I would almost feel obligated to be like, oh yeah, that means I want to check out more. And I was like, this is pleasant. I've had a great time podcasting with you, but, like, don't need to watch this ever again.
No, that's totally valid. I think my stance is just going to be a little different because I have seen all of these going up.
Yeah, of course.
So, and I'm just kind of rating it based on the things that I would kind of rank it around. And I think this is a solid 4. This was like this was tight. I think that helps it that it's so short. But it's not the best. It's like solid. It's like a B. I think it's a B Scooby-Doo episode. Like, I've seen better and I've seen a lot worse. So that's why I'm giving it a 4.
Yeah, I feel like if I were with you, like, I almost feel a little harsh in my rating at this point, but like,
okay.
I think I'm rating just like in a generic, like, sense. If I'm rating truly based on, like, this one episode of this show in the context of this show, I probably would rate it higher because it's just like, it was enjoyable. Like I said, I've said it a couple times. It was plenty enjoyable. There were decent laughs. I enjoyed myself, but, like, that's so, like, yeah. If I were you, I would understand your ranking there.
Yeah. But that's it. That's Scooby-Doo Spooky Games, our little Olympic detour or World Games detour.
World Games, Felipe. World Games. I'm going to have to sue you, man.
Honestly, I don't expect nothing less from you. Coming from me, because you're a marketing person. You you have to get the branding right. Otherwise, you're going to get in trouble.
Easy to sue, man. Easy to sue you.
Are you going to be getting your popcorn out for the next World Games?
Oh yeah, of course. I'll be ready for the next World Games. When is it? 2 years from now?
What should the sequels of this episode be? Like, what would Scooby and Shaggy, like, if they went to another Olympics? Like, what kind of activity would you want them to have the monster be surrounded by? Like synchronized swimming?
My brain went to, like, a marathon, like the New York City Marathon, where it's like it sticks with the running theme, but it's like there's more people. It's in a bigger city. That's where my brain went, but we could probably do even better than that. I mean, the logical next step would be the big game, aka the Super Bowl. That would be a possible good location. Any kind of.
I'm wondering if they've ever had a Super Bowl episode of Scooby-Doo. They probably must have. Like, they've had. I
would probably guess that they have to. Like, they used to have the Harlem Globetrotters on. Yeah, that's another thing that I know. I know that the Harlem Globetrotters had a crossover with Scooby-Doo, and that's why the fake Harlem Globetrotters are on Futurama as like a reference to that. So I also knew that.
We love it. Robbie, where can the people keep up with you? You have anything going on? Plus, I know this is like the whole point of your podcast, but what is a pop culture plug that people should be watching right now or reading or listening to? Maybe something that you haven't discussed on your podcast that you think people should check out. I don't know.
That's a tough one. You know what? I'm going to be a hater because that's what I do best. Don't watch Jury Duty. It's not good. I don't know why people like it.
I'm here for it because I haven't seen it. I'm like, of the things that like I want to watch, this is low on the priority list. But like I love the spicy take. What about it do you not like? I'm curious because I've heard such glowing reviews
I
about
just
it.
think it's so like the Joe Schmo show did it better and they did it 20 years ago. So I would just tell you to watch that. My problem with the show is that it doesn't really know what it wants. And I was on Twitter and I think like Gabby Pascuzzi actually tweeted something and I was like, yes, that is my take. My problem with it is that like, okay, so the idea is that everyone is acting and then there is this guy who doesn't know what's going on. And I get it if you're giving an interview and you're with that guy, you have to stay in character. But when he is not there, you shouldn't still be in character. Like, I know that you're not this person. So, like, that's what really bothers me. It's like, I want you to be giving interviews to the camera being like, oh, I did this because I didn't want Felipe to realize that I was doing X, not like pretending to be something else. I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. It's just very frustrating to me.
Well, I have a theory because I just saw that Ronald signed with an agent or something. And I'm like, oh, Ronald's gonna become super unlikable in like 3 years. Watch.
3 years. He's gonna get milkshake ducked in like 3 months.
Well, like Ronald, I think the go ahead.
The only faster fall was like Jerry from Cheer. Like, there's no one like I don't think he's gonna be that bad, but this guy's gonna get milkshake ducked real hard. He's gonna like there's gonna be some take from 2012 where he's like, oh, like Obama isn't America, like was born in Kenya or something like that, and be like, oh, of course, like what else should we have expected? And if I'm wrong,
prove me wrong, but I feel like this guy's like he's just signed with an agent. He's either gonna go big time Hollywood, and people are gonna be like, oh, Jerry, like he's get out of here, like Ben Platt, or he's gonna be like canceled.
Everyone loves him. He's a very nice guy. Like, I think what's really gonna happen is he's gonna be in like an Oreos commercial or something like that. Like, or like he'll like become an influencer and like that's what will happen for him. And like,
gives guy from The Bachelor that is super likable and then gets on TikTok.
Yeah. You know who his comp is? His comp is Joey from the season 1 of The Circle. Or Shubham, like these like very nice, fun characters who like we liked, but then like I don't want to see them in any other context because I don't want to stop liking them. And I think that's what's going to happen to him. Is like once you see him in a different context, you're gonna be like, oh, he's not really as nice as I thought he was, and also like he's also like a normal human being, which is fine, but whatever. Yeah. A lot of jury duty hate from me. I'm sorry, but like that's just my take.
I'm here for the take because I've only heard glowing reviews, and I'm like, okay, I know. Maybe now I don't.
I know that's what makes me even angrier.
Listen to podcasts about it.
Yeah, it's like when Nomadland, who everyone liked, and I was like, this movie is hot garbage. Like, get away from me.
Yeah, no, I feel sometimes that way, like about like different like reality TV takes. Is like I feel like I'm so against the grain, but like with movies and TV shows, I haven't found something yet, or if I have, I haven't thought of it yet, but. Like I mean, okay. Everyone says this is mine. Like I love Succession. I think it's a great show, but I don't think it's the best thing since sliced bread. I thought Better Call Saul was much better, and people are like, oh,
yeah. And I think at that point you're like splitting hairs, and like I do find sometimes something like the passion I'm showing anti-jury duty is not a reflection of like how bad the show actually is, because I don't think it's really that bad. It just like that didn't work for me, and because
it's like going against the grain because everyone's so obsessed with it that
it becomes more fun when everyone's like, this is the best thing, and I'm like, no, this is trash. When in reality I'm like, oh, this is just a show I didn't really enjoy, so I stopped watching. And like I don't want to yuck anyone's yum. Like, go ahead and watch it. Like, go for it.
I feel like I'm usually very like meh. That's like my mentality for things. If I don't like it, it's usually meh. It has to be actively like something I really was bored by or did not enjoy that I like go against something. But like I also do like tend to like find myself going against the grain just because I hate groupthink, and I'm like, no, everyone should have like I want to know why you think it's good, not like just because it's just like it's fun. And like okay,
I mean the thing is I'm better than everyone, so that's why like I don't like it. Yeah. But what are you gonna do? So in terms of where you could find me, going back to your original question, you can follow me on Twitter at Robbie_Freeman. Also, please check out my podcast, Kickball Friends. As Felipe mentioned, we cover Kickball now. We cover pop culture, basically the biggest movies, TV shows that come out each week, any big pop culture news. That's what we're usually talking about. So, yeah. That's me.
I definitely am a fan of Kickball Friends. They usually like hit the 3 biggest things of the week and then like do like side pieces on like the smaller stuff. Like for this last week, they did Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Sisu, something else. I wanted to listen to it, but I haven't gotten around to that. I think there was also something that I'm not caught up on that one, but I wanted to hear your Guardians take so badly.
You watch Summer House?
Summer House? No. What might have been something else. Oh, that
Silo
one.
was the other show? Silo was the other show we covered. The new Apple TV show.
Is it like it's only 2 episodes have come out, right?
Only 2 episodes right now, yeah.
No big spoilers?
No, I don't think we
like
can
nothing like earth-shattering that like I need to experience for the first time without being okay. Then I'll check it out. Good. Because like a lot of them I'll see like one of the big shows that I'm behind on in the title. I was like, no.
I'm pretty sure it's like we speak very like cryptically about what's going on.
Cool.
It's like also
then
like
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Because I like hearing your Marvel takes because usually I'm on the same page as you. Like I thought Quantumania was not good. Like usually the things you're high on, I'm high on. The things that you're low on, I'm low on.
I appreciate that.
But yeah, in terms of me, you can follow this podcast at Brazil Dragon Pod on all social media. Me personally, you can check out all social media at What the Fleep, especially my Instagram is where I do a lot of my self-promotion for like when I'm performing comedy at Flappers or other locations here in Southern California, getting booked on some shows there, which is super exciting. And
do you do stand-up or improv or would you do
stand-up? Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I can send you one of them if you want. I wanted to post it on my TikTok and then put the TikTok on my Twitter, but I got lazy. But yeah.
Sounds like a lot of work.
I TikTok, the way you edit videos on TikTok confuses me and it hurts my brain so much, and I need Nicole to help me. I love it. So and then in terms of the Brazilian Dragon, we're gonna keep chugging along. You can follow us on all social media at Brazil Dragon Pod, your favorite podcast app. If you want to go give star ratings and reviews to Kickball Friends and Brazilian Dragon Podcast, that would be fine and dandy. And we're on YouTube now, so like and subscribe to stay up to date on all different podcasts that I'm doing. Continuing to do Scooby-Doo podcast, still banking some episodes for Media Made Me, which is I'm super excited to release. And my pop culture plug is gonna be the weather. If it's nice outside, go take a walk or go to the pool or do something. I don't know. That's like super LA of me to say, but I was at the pool earlier today and it was where I watched the Scooby-Doo movie and it was a good time.
Also, Felipe, I didn't get to comment on this because I just saw it, but the picture in your Gmail is absolutely incredible. Really? You don't have a beard. You look very, very young. It's very funny.
Okay, so keep it? Or should I update it? Because I feel like I need new headshots.
I mean, like you might if you need headshots to make sure you look like you do now, like that might be a reason to do it. But like it was just funny seeing a picture of you from maybe like 5 years ago.
3 years ago, yeah, 3.5.
Okay, but the lack of beard is a big difference, I think.
Also, my face was bigger.
Then I'm very happy for you. Then we stand a king who can lose weight.
It's hard, especially when you get the munchies.
I respect.
Honestly, it's the ADHD medication. I didn't really do much. But yeah, and then what am I? My pop culture plug, the weather, and also I don't know. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is still in theaters. Go watch that. Do yourself a favor. I liked it.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah,
no spoilers. Did you like it or no? Or like
thumbs up.
Because I'm gonna listen to the podcast, so I'll hear all your takes.
Thumbs up. I enjoyed it. Yeah.
With that said, we're gonna hop back into the what? Oh yeah,
are we friends on Letterboxd?
Each other on Letterboxd.
We'll have to get on that.
Okay,
I think we might. We'll check it out.
Okay, we'll fix that in post. With that said, we're gonna hop back into the mystery machine and off we go to our next adventure. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.